Hello, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in the world. A very warm welcome to Meet Menaca, celebrating you. Today, we are going to have our episode 75, Value of Community with Ian Pelham Turner. Ian Pelham Turner is an international TV broadcaster specializing in the royal family, community relations, promoting British business and young people. Before I go further into talking about Ian Turner, let me talk about the show briefly. Meet Menaca, we invite guest speakers who are experts in the field and have transformed their lives or a story to tell. It is with the intention and purpose of celebrating each and every one of you by sharing stories and by promoting health and well-being. The request from us is to share these videos as much as possible to benefit others. And also please support us to grow by subscribing to our YouTube channel, Meet Menaca. Going back to Ian Pelham Turner, in 2021, with his colleague Helena Chard, he appeared in over 30 live shows to New York, a further 80 appearances for Sky 585, with its 1 billion audience, and was one of the go-to commentators on the death of Prince Philip in April 2021. A former commissioned royal photographer working with 5 generations of the royal family, one of his most famous commissions was taking the first Christmas photographs of baby Prince William with Charles and Diana. And you can actually go and see this photograph on his page on Facebook. These days, Ian works hard to promote community values, feminine issues, and inspiring young people. And I got to know Ian because he interviewed me on a TV show in 2020. It is a real privilege and honor to have you, Ian, on the show. A very warm welcome to you.
Menaca, thank you so much for this afternoon. So I'm show 75, but I'm only 70 years old. So there's a disparity in this already. But thank you so much. I feel honored to talk to people like yourself. I've just read your book. As you know, we were discussing this for 4 hours, everybody, on Friday. Before we knew it, it was people were trying to move us out of the restaurant. It's taken so long discussing what we were going to sort of talk about on the show, but I think important things as well about how communities can come together. So thank you so much. I feel honored.
Thank you so much. Thanks. I know, Ian, you have been a royal commentator and TV presenter for over 55 years now. I know you're young at heart. I thought it would be best to mention the experience you have. So what got you interested in the value of community then?
I think it really started about 8 or 9 years ago. At that time, I was working with some of the security services in Britain, and they wanted me to build bridges between themselves and communities. And as I started talking to the communities, I had never really experienced, I'm a white male, I'm 70 years old, and I'd never really experienced any racial tension in my life. I'd been in riots and different things like that where different communities were fighting each other, but I'd never really understood it. And then all of a sudden, I'm confronted with finding out what beautiful people you are, what great communities you are, the values you bring to Britain as well. And I've always been proud of supporting communities in Britain as well, because I think you're terribly brave coming to meet people like myself. My goodness me, you know, would I be able to do it the other way? I don't know. But I think the reality with sort of something like this is that communities bring so much value to Britain. You know, and it started over a century ago when you looked at the Jewish populations, then the Chinese populations, then the East Europeans came in, the Asian communities, the Caribbean communities. And what it gives Britain is this cacophony, this wonderful United Nations of people that I'm proud to actually represent, to talk about, and to promote really across the world.
Thank you, Ian, because I think we definitely need more people like you, like as we discussed. It's not a easy, by any stretch of imagination, it's not easy to migrate and come to a totally new place and start all over again. And I definitely know the experience having done it twice, not once. I think we definitely need more people like you getting involved in inviting and encouraging people to include the communities who move to Britain. So thank you so much for that. What values, Ian, do you then see in Britain today?
I hope to see more values, because as we discussed recently, I think Britain at the moment has trust issues over our politicians. I think we're walking towards situations that are going to be very difficult for the country. And when I look at what's happening at the moment, the values that Britain has, I feel, can be enormous. The reality at the moment is that I feel that I was really against anything to do with Brexit, because I felt in reality, it was cutting us away from some very important communities. But when I was talking to a gentleman the other day, and his really dream is to bring the Commonwealth countries together again. And so I think Britain has a lot to offer, but it also has to stand up for itself. We have to be a nation again where truth and a vision in Britain is very important as well. And, as you know, I'm a political commentator as well. And sometimes I look at what's happening in Britain right now. And quite honestly, then I'm ashamed of Britain. I think we talked the other day about the debacle of Harry and Meghan. For me, that was very much just as much a racist issue, and I called it out as such, as anything else. And in Britain, my generation, I come from a working class family, and anybody who came to my door, or my parents' door, in actual fact, when I was growing up, it didn't matter who they were, which religion, what color their skin, who they were. If they needed some help, my parents, if they could, would offer help. And that's how I grew up. And I want to be proud of Britain again as a multicultural society that actually uses all our skills, all our values, all our ambitions, and sell that to the world.
Thank you, Ian. I know you're very passionate about this values. So thank you so much for sharing it. So do you feel then, when you interact with members from different communities, like us Asians or any other community, do they feel like first-class citizens? Do you think there is mutual respect integrated in the integrated communities?
I remember a while back, I was working with the Black Police Association. Now, these were obviously very intelligent officers in the Metropolitan Police. And someone asked them a question to about 40 or 50 of them. How many of them put their hands up? How many of them felt like first-class citizens? And I think about 4 did. Now, that to me was a damning report more than anything. That was just a rule of thumb. And so it's my vision, if I can create it, where everybody in Britain who is now resident in Britain should feel like a first-class citizen. I think it's so important that people feel respected. I love Asian communities. I love Asian women, I have to be honest. But but there you go. I love you've got such beautiful looks. And one of my friends, she keeps on cooking food for me. I think she feels that I'm actually sort of, I don't know whether I'm not feeding myself properly or not, but I keep on getting these canisters coming to me every few days, and it's great food, don't get me wrong, but it's quite incredible. And so you have such a nurturing values in life as well, and so I respect all the values of I think Asian cultures. I'd like to learn more about it as well, because I think, as I said to you at the time, I think I'm a hippie at heart. I don't know where I slightly went wrong on my hippie trail, because I suddenly became very conformist, in how I look at my views. But I think I'm a hippie at heart. But I just get this wonderful feeling that when I'm around Asian people and Asian cultures, I feel at ease and I feel at peace.
It's a proud thing for us that you like our culture, for sure. I think we do have something like every other culture, every other community. We have the positives, and there are areas where we could improve. So thank you so much for that. Yeah, really appreciate that. Can you tell me then, I know you're British and we have spoken about these things at length many times. So what do you think will make all the communities feel that like the first class citizens you want them to feel in the modern Britain today?
I think, first of all, hopefully the types of programs we're doing now, the types of programs that I work with as well, are very important, because I genuinely love interviewing people. I loved interviewing you, and you were nervous. I had to make you smile during the interview. That was a big godsend for me, back in 2020. You've got to know me a lot better since that time. And I think that the reality is that basically what I feel is my vision this year, I'm creating a new project called Great Britons. And I very much want Asian communities to be a major part of this programming, major guests, because you've got such fantastic stories. I mean, your story, let's be honest, I was amazed that you've survived all the things that that have happened in your life. My goodness me. I mean, all power to you, for that happening.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
And I think it's very important now for people like yourselves, for lots of the different communities, to actually see that people like myself respect you, not only respect you, want to promote the values that you have across the world.
So I know you actively do a lot of things to promote these values and integrate the societies, different communities, which is really great. And I really hope more people will do that. Yes, you have talked about how others can embrace us, a lot of Asians on this platform today. And do you think also, like from our perspective, and I know it could be true, we sometimes also could have that insular culture as much as the British or the English. So do you think one of the contributory factor is that?
Absolutely, 1000%. Because in reality, Asian people have this philosophy of doing great things, but never talking about them. You make the most difficult interviews to actually try and obtain I've ever known. But when I first started doing multicultural interviews, I got people from Africa absolutely came rushing on the set. I got people from the Caribbean came rushing on the set. I got people from Eastern Europe came rushing on the set. And I remember one day, and I'm thinking, I can't get Asian people on the, why? Is it me? Is it sort of something they don't like? And I remember one day talking to this couple, and they were an Asian couple who had got a very successful kitchen business, putting kitchen appliances into kitchens. And I said, look, and they were so proud of the thing, and we're getting on very well. And I said, you're going to be, I'm really looking forward to having you on a TV show. Oh no, they said, no, they can't do that. And I think, why? I feel Asian people keep their light under a bushel. It's a British saying. And I think in reality, you need to talk more about your cultures, because I think in that way, the values that I see in you when I meet people like you as well, become more well known. And I look at a multicultural society, and when you look at who are the top 10 wealth earners on the rich list by the Sunday Times in Britain, they're virtually Asian. So you know, there is a work culture there. There's a great culture there, and as people, you've just got the most fabulous personalities as well. And for goodness sake, just talk about it. It's very simple. Come, you know, I hope I'm not too frightening when you come on a show of mine. I've had people quaking at me recently. I'm thinking, why me? Because I'm just a normal person. You know, I don't see myself as anybody important. But come on and talk about what you're doing. And I think that's one way of getting the Asian culture much further across.
I think there is definitely something in what you said. Unfortunately, we lost Philip Chan, who introduced me first time to Ian a few years back. And, you know, he was a great promoter of all different communities. And he believed exactly the same thing you believed. And I really hope he rests in peace. You know, like he has done great things in his life. But I think there's 100% there's something. He asked me 5 times before I said yes to come on the show. It's with you. It's not because I don't want to, because I wasn't sure what to say. You know, I knew you. I looked up your profile, and you know, you were a royal commentator. You've been a presenter for a long time, and I was thinking, what can I add? You know, what value can I add by being on that show, and what am I going to say? And I'm glad I did. But I think there is something in it. We are really not used to going on the shows and talking. And yes, I think even this show, it started with a very different values, different purpose, and, you know, glad it turned out to be the way it has. You really do put people at ease, and when they come to your show, as you rightly mentioned, I was nervous when I came to your show. So I think by talking about these things, the barriers, the intercultural difficulties, and because we all have different value systems, you know, being on the TV is seen very differently. Yeah. I think that's another thing for you to understand, by the Caucasians, the Europeans, and by Asians, is seen very, very differently. And I think from a very young age, we are taught to be humble. And we are taught it's not a good trait to talk about yourself too much, and definitely not talk about your success stories, for sure. And I think that gets imbibed, and I think it also becomes an inhibiting factor as you grow and to do different things, because we are all encouraged. I'm sure most of us in the audience will agree. Most of us are encouraged to become professionals. So we are told to go to school, study, get a degree, go to work hard, retire, and then, you know, focus on your own family, particularly when it comes to women. It is even more so. You're not encouraged to go on public forums and speak about your stories, share your experiences, and do these things. So yeah, that is perhaps why you are finding Asians being reluctant to come on your show. Yeah.
Well, I mean, and I understand that, but let me tell you a little secret. you mentioned Philip Chan. Philip Chan, you think you had ramifications about coming on the show. To get Philip Chan on in front of a TV camera, what was an absolute, the only way I could ever get Philip Chan on a TV show was that I'd invite him down and I'd say, would you mind coming down because you've got some guests today? Oh, by the way, they're probably going to be dressed smartly today. You know, perhaps you could wear a suit today and this type of thing. And he as always, he'd come down in his suit and then he'd say, who's the guest? Who's the guest? And I said, it's you. It's the only way I ever got him on the screen, because otherwise, you know, he'd always find some excuse, yeah, to do this. And I think that the way I do, I don't like to call them interviews. I like to call them conversations, because that's all we're doing. You know, I always remember that when I went for my first ever journalistic job, I was 15 years of age. I just passed my local school examinations. The local newspaper had advertised for a trainee photojournalist. And I was so nervous. And as my mother was putting me out the door to go to the interview, she said, always remember, you've got a good Scottish tongue in your head. And I suppose I've used my Scottish tongue just to talk to people for the past 55 years.
Your mother's advice has served you well. Mums are always right here. You should know. I think in this aspect, I have to also bring in another aspect, I say, particularly when it comes to Sri Lankans. I know a lot of Sri Lankans on the forum today. There's another factor is the language barrier. Because for people like me, myself, you have read my book. I studied in Tamil up to I went to university, and we always have this hiccups thinking, almost inferiority complex thinking. Our English is not good, our vocabulary is not vast, our pronunciation might be not great. So I think that also could be a stumbling block. And the reason I'm mentioning this is for you to understand why perhaps some people don't put themselves out there and jump in the first to go on interviews and talk about things what should be talked about. Yeah.
I understand that. In reality, it's a complex that is not real. Because, you know, I work with all sorts of dialects across the world, obviously, because, you know, with the global projects that I do. And you know what the hardest, I do a lot of work in Australia. And, you know, sometimes they've got such a strong Australian accent, I don't actually understand what they're asking me, you know, you know, and they're talking in English, obviously, anyway, as well. So I think it's like anything in life. The thing that I noticed over a period of time, that when I first started in television properly about 12 years ago, and I was working for CNN, and I watched back my sort of first ever interview with CNN, and it was the most incredibly nerve-wracking time I could ever, you know, I think I was blooded on the first ever one because I was outside Buckingham Palace. It was for an hour. I was one of the anchors on Kate and William and the royal wedding. Basically what would happen is they do a countdown, as you probably know, and you've got an earpiece, and so the person in Atlanta who is actually making sure that the sound is okay, because it's just beamed to Atlanta and then it's beamed out across the world. He was saying, I can't hear you, you have to speak louder. So by the time we'd got to 3, 5, 4, 2, 1, we were shouting at the top of our voices because it was the only way that Atlanta could hear us. And this went on for an hour. I came out afterwards, and in actual fact, we had NBC next door to us on one side, ABC on the other side, American Network, and they were banging on the wall because we were coming into their programming as well, with all the noise that we were making at the same time. So I think the thing I learned about television and how to pronounce and speak is just speak slowly. Because I think that's very important as well. But you have such a clear voice, and so do all people. I get the anxiety. So what I try to do, as I said, I just gave you a little insight, a secret about interviewing. That if I find I've got a nervous interviewer, I will normally compliment that person first, and if they still feel nervous, I start telling these terrible jokes, you know, and I think they're wondering, oh my God, you know, we're going to be interviewed by an idiot, you know. So it seems to calm them down, if nothing. I laugh at my own jokes, but you know, so be it. You know, it's my studio anyway. So I think the point I'm really trying to make is that don't be concerned about your English, and people who are listening to this show. What is the most important thing of the lot is that you communicate with the rest of the world, and it's the beauty of what you talk about. It's the beauty of how you pronounce it and present it. That is what people are going to actually understand.
Sure. Thank you so much, Ian. I think it took me decades to understand that, what you're going to say is more important than how you say it. I really hope the generations to come will learn that much earlier and, want to be sharing and telling and speaking and going on interviews whenever they want. And hopefully they won't have these stumbling blocks what we had. That's the plan. Thank you. As we talked a few minutes back here, and each community has positive values and not so positive sometimes. All of us are different but similar. That's my take on it anyway. So do you think it is worth learning from each other and creating communities with much greater values collectively?
Absolutely. I think the reality is, I have a growing amount of Asian friends, and I feel so comfortable in your company. And I think there's so much to learn. I'm interested about the different religions, and I want to go to a Sikh temple. I quite fancy that, and apparently they feed you as well, so that there's an extra plus.
And the food is delicious. I can vouch for that.
I can imagine. I'm not going for that reason, but well, I am part. And I think the reality is. I learned so much from people like yourselves as well. As I say, I read your book. I'm astonished you were driving me to our coffee shop the other day. My goodness, the amount that you've gone through in your life. And it was going from bad to worse, from chapter to chapter, So I'm thinking, goodness only knows how on earth you've arrived in Britain and the beautiful person that you are now, I think you can learn so much. I respected you before, but I totally respect you now for what you've achieved with your life. And I think you're such good examples of how your cultures have worked within the British community. And to my mind, you are British people as well. And that's the point to get across. And so, we can all learn from each other. I remember I have a lot of Caribbean friends. And I got introduced to plantain. I'm virtually a vegetarian, not totally, but I love plantain. And I remember one day that some of my friends took me to a Caribbean restaurant, the Bernie Grant Center. And everybody else was having rice and peas and goat and all this type of thing, and I didn't quite fancy that, but I fancied rice and peas and plantain. And they laughed at me when I asked for this, but I just really enjoyed it. And the point I'm making is that British people, I think, would really enjoy your cultures as well. And that's why you need to talk more about your cultures, I feel. That there needs to be more broadcast opportunities where you talk about things. I love Asian foods. I love curries. I love it all. As you can probably see, that's why you only see me from the neck upwards.
That's credit to Zoom. That works.
I suppose I'm an example of enjoying Asian food. It's probably one of the best things, but you're so much more than that, because the sustainability of who you are, the values that you believe in, the cultures that you have as well are so important. I think that you add such great value to wherever you come from, and it's for me it's a culture of happiness, and peace. And I think at my advanced age, I'm not 75, I'm 70. So I'm glad to come on your 75th show anyway. But I absolutely adore the peace that I feel that you have as well. And I think it's so important, for people like myself to listen. The only, I can't meditate. I've got this thing about meditation where it's like, I have this method in my head, and it's been forever that I can't go to a cinema or a theatre because I fall asleep within minutes. Something goes dark, that tells me to go to sleep. And it's like, and I remember once going to a series of meetings, and they said, well, first of all, you will meditate first of all for 15 minutes before, and I was so scared I would fall asleep, and all the rest of them would come out of the meditation and I'd be fast asleep, and I couldn't even meditate then. But I think what you have is this peaceful way, your culture to me, and I get that you haven't come from a peaceful history, but my thing is that the real values of your culture are wonderful.
Thank you so much, Ian. You've definitely made us laugh as well, so which is a bonus. Thank you so much. We speak about diversity and inclusion all the time, and I am definitely passionate about the subject. So, I mentioned this to you on Friday as well. Diversity is inviting somebody to a party, and inclusion is asking them to dance with you. I think, but on the other hand, it is also important the other person needs to be ready to join the dance. It's not only the person who is inviting, it takes two to tango, as they say. What is your take on it? Yeah.
I think you're quite true, because I do a lot of work with East European communities as well, and especially the Albanian community. And I've never seen this before. I was invited, I was the only man to 200 women at this event. And I actually got a photograph of myself in amongst 200 women that I sent to all my male friends, because they were always saying, you always get all the pretty girls. So so I sent them a picture of 200 of them with me in the middle. But afterwards, they all got up and did this group dance. And I think they looked at me, they thought, probably patting me on their paw, so and so, he's too old to go out dancing. So I'm going to go and try this as well. So I did, and they loved it. And I think that the reality is that any method of interacting with people is important, whether it's vocally, whether it's physically, whether it's through cultures, because I love it as well. And I love it when people are smiling, when people are laughing, when people are enjoying themselves from all the cultures as well. And I would suspect, I remember one of my friends, he was the former mayor, Peter Chand. And he had, after he left being a mayor, he had a party for all his friends who had helped him during this mayoral period. And then he was asked to do, I don't know what you would call it, a seat dance, and he was a bit embarrassed to start off with, but then he got caught in the mood of this dance. I've never seen him dance like this before in my life. I saw a totally different side of it. I almost joined in. If I'd have known how to do the steps, I might have joined in myself as well. But I think the reality is cultures don't collide, cultures survive and come together. And that's really, the wonderful cultures that you have can very greatly come and knit together with British cultures as well. And as I say, constantly, I can't say this enough, you bring so much to Britain.
What you just said, and reminded me, I think it came in Harvard's Business Review a few years back. I read about diversity and inclusion, and they said it is diversity is like smoothie and inclusion is like fruit salad. So, in diversity, people talk about it a lot, but they want uniformity. They want everybody to be the same. And we just you beautifully said how different cultures can come together, but retain their own values own cultures. And that's what this fruit salad beautifully does. It retains each characteristic, but brings together, blend it together to make something beautiful. So how can we do that? And that is the question. We all want to be doing this from all sides, but for whatever reason, it hasn't happened yet. So, you have enough experience in all different arenas, from royal families to politics to communities to young people. So what would be your suggestion?
I think more, again, things like these types of programs might come on my TV shows. would be a great start.
We are all going to queue up here now.
Don't be so resistant. I think the more you talk about things, the more people visualize things as well. I think are so important. To be able to show what other cultures are like, and I love seeing it. I love hearing about it. The different colors, the different dresses, the different costumes, the different meaning of things as well. And to me, the reason why I got into journalism is that in reality, I love people. And when you have a genuine love of people as well, then the more you can find out about them. I feel terribly privileged to talk to you in the community today.
Thank
and
you.
I feel terribly privileged to be who I am. I really describe myself as just a grain in the sand in a desert. I'm nobody important, in that ways at all. But I think in reality, I love learning about new cultures, new things, and I find it fascinating. And I think, for people like myself, as you know, I've had bad experiences as well in my life, and I still really want to walk the path of peace in my own life as well. And so when I look at cultures like yours, it somehow you've retained all the qualities against all adversities, and you still have this peaceful air to you as well.
Thanks, Ian. I think I call myself an ambassador for women empowerment, and I know you are very passionate about this subject as well. So what got you involved in women empowerment?
Well, I'm a self-confessed lover of women, but let's get that one out of the way. I love all. I love all women. I have to be honest, but I love even more womanhood. Now, I went through a time in my life that was very depressing. I think I was in a state of depression as well. And I came out of a marriage. I was brokenhearted at the end of this. Womanhood saved me. They circled me in love. They helped me to grow back again, because I came out of a marriage and I was highly successful in what I did. There was no two ways about it, but obviously I wasn't, because otherwise, my former wife wouldn't have wanted to divorce me. And I think that the reality was that I had to find myself again, and women helped me to find myself as well. And so what I really love, well, first of all, I said to you, and I'm going to embarrass you now, I love beautiful eyes. And I said that to you before. But I think the other thing is that I think that women have this all-round ability. And I think if more women were in power, the world would be a better place, that's for certain, because you seem to have a more round understanding. There's a kindness factor, there's an understanding factor. I don't think I'm ever going to understand women, but I do enjoy being with them.
Yeah, a bit too much to understand. I agree. That's okay. Thank you so much. And it is good to see men who positively want to empower women. That's the reason I mentioned that. So thank you so much for that. Can I ask you, like, you have interacted with many different communities. So if you have to take home message for our audience, what would that be?
I think embrace your culture, value it 100%, value the abilities you can bring to this world, value the cultures you can bring to this world, and talk about it. Because the more the world can talk about cultures, I always argue that, as you know, I work in politics as well. Peoples don't cause wars. Politicians cause wars. And I think the reality is that, just a very quick example of, I was one of the first Western journalists to be allowed into Russia after perestroika. Now, all my upbringing, we were always warned, don't go behind the Iron Curtain, they'll arrest you, you'll never be seen again, they're such unkind people. And no, they're not. Because the first time I went to Moscow, they were the most wonderful people again to actually meet, talk to. They were starving, a lot of them at that time, but they still invited you into their homes, and they virtually gave you a month's supply of food, just so that they could sort of show that you were welcome in their society. And I think it's the same with this Asian community. As I say, I'm surprised I'm not twice the size I am at the moment with the amount of food I get coming in. Don't get me wrong, I enjoy it, but I'm sure my Asian friends will sort of laugh at this afternoon as well. But I think what the world needs now is all the communities to come together, people come together. And part of what I want to try and achieve is the people who are watching you this afternoon, you go out and spread the word to other people about how enjoyable this show is, how they can listen to other cultures at the same time, the values of a show like this, and how you spread the word. Because if peoples can communicate, if communities can communicate, then I think that is one of the biggest ways of actually people seeing that there's no bad community, that there's no situations that they should be afraid of within communities, and that we can all come together. Because the thing I noticed, I work with a lot of female organizations. And do you know what? You all face the same problems. And so I say to organizations, talk to each other. You're great at sort of having communities where all these women come together, the Albanian community, Caribbean, African, Asian. You all have your own community. Talk to each other, for goodness sakes, because when I listen to what's going on and the issues that women face in general, in reality, for me, I think what I would like to see in the world is just a level playing field for women, because I know women can shine. Women are cleverer than men. There's no two ways about it. I think I don't see myself as clever at all. For some reason I've managed to get to where I am, and I think it's more luck than anything else. And I think the reality on occasions like this is that if you communicate more, talk to each other more, talk to other communities as well, because women face the same problems across the world. And I say to you as well, they shouldn't do. They shouldn't face the problems that they face a lot of the time. I believe in equality and a level playing field, and that's all women need, I think, for the world to be a much better place.
Thank you. And that is one thing I really respect you for, because I have heard you speak about this very passionately, and I know the work you do behind the scenes as well. The best thing you had told me a few weeks back, I think when we spoke, you said you should form a UN for women, because that is what you need to communicate between different communities, and that would be great. Actually, a few years back now, we created a group on Facebook. It's called Women Empowering Global Women, and that was the intention. But of course, you can't do all things, and it is just sitting there. But I think I really, really respect you for that and believe in it. I think each one of us, particularly when we think we go through the worst experiences, and it's not true, even in the same community. But then you have taken it to another level to show how different communities, even though we see them as, they might be better off, they might be going through exactly the similar issues. So I think it is something for us to take home for sure and think about it, how women as such from different communities can come together and work towards creating a better life for all of us. And of course, I think it is Mahatma Gandhi famously said, if women are empowered, then the whole community and the nation will be empowered. And he also said, be the change you want to see in the world. And I think each person can create that change. And it's really nice to see, Ian. Many people might see you as a privileged person, white, man in a privileged position. And I have told you this, that I speak my mind. I have told you this before, openly to you. But it is really good for people like you to be open about these things and talk about these things and promote women and different communities. So huge respect to you, Ian, for that.
Thank you. And I think, we were talking the other day about, in your book, one day someone said you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, and you laughed at that. Ho, ho, ho. The same for me. The reason I got to where I got to in my career was sheer hard work. I came from a working class family. And where the work ethic, and that's why I think another reason why I like Asian communities as well, because you have a tremendous work ethic at the same time. But I think, the reality for me was that when I first got married, I was working 18 hours a day. I was doing 3 different jobs to actually sort of claw my way up this slippery slope of a ladder. And I think that the reality is, yes, I am privileged. I'm privileged to know you. I'm privileged to do the job that I do now. The things that I've seen in my life, the things I've experienced in my life are tremendous. And so I have been extremely lucky. And the thing I say to people is I've loved every single day of my working life. Every day is a pleasure. People will say to me in the mornings, how are you this morning? And I say, I'm bouncing. I'm bouncing out of bed in the mornings, and I'm having my tea. I don't drink alcohol, so I'm a big tea drinker, and so I have my pint of tea every morning before I start the world. But I think it's important as well, nowadays to actually look at the world, see how we can make differences as well, and do it. Don't talk about it, do it. And I always say, probably the only value I have, in reality is I get things done. I might not be the most patient of men at times. I have to be honest. There are times when I get a bit frustrated, and and I have to sort of edge people on slightly more to do something. I haven't got patience. That's not one of my best traits. But in reality, to be able to see how changes can be made, and for me as well, technology now is such a brilliant method. I look back to my childhood. And I remember the first ever televised broadcast via Telstar. I even remember the name of the satellite. It was the first ever satellite put up that could actually broadcast a signal from New York to London. And my father allowed me to stay up till 9 o'clock at night. I was about 5 years old, just to see how this could actually happen. And it changed the world. And I think he realized it would change the world. And the communication systems that we have now, we're talking to the world right now, and we just accept it. But it's the most miraculous opportunity to talk to people.
Thank you, Ian. I think it is really something to remember for all of us. I mean, I also come from a generation where I didn't grow up with TV all the time. And I'm sure people from Sri Lanka will remember Rupavahini. People from India will remember Doordarshan. These were the good old days when people got the first experiences of these things. Now, we have come a long way from there for sure. And I think the main message came through for me is action speaks louder than words. And these days, congruency between action and words are hard to find, as we can see in all the different landscapes, including the political landscape. That is the message which came through to me. Thank you so much, and it has been such a privilege and honor to have you on the show. Can I ask you one last question? Because you have immense experience, 55 years to be precise, in the journalism and broadcasting. What has been your experience on this structure?
I think, I mean, I love all these things, and you've got such a great show as well, and you see that you bring happiness. You bring happiness every Sunday afternoon, no doubt. People are coming into you from right across the world because you make them feel happy. You make them feel respected. You make them feel that they are part of something that has a value. You have a value, in what you're doing. The show has a value as well, and for me, it's exciting, I'm talking to people in Sri Lanka, for goodness sakes, how wonderful is that? And I think, the reality nowadays is that we take too much for granted at times, in the way we communicate and all our communication systems now. I mean, I wish I was your age now, but know what I know today. So I've actually promised myself, I promised everyone else, I think I'm going to live to 100, just to make sure I don't miss anything that's going on at the moment in the way of communications either.
I'm sure, and we all wish that you live up to 100, Ian, for sure. Thank you so much for that. And as I said, I have to reiterate, it has been a great pleasure and privilege to have you on the show. And I must mention this. We have this Meet Menaca Celebrating You. This came actually from Ian quite a few months back, I think a couple of years back, when we started the show and we had to change the name of the show. Ian and me, we sometimes meet up and we have this long conversations about different, from politics to women empowerment to cultures and inclusion and diversity. And I said, I'm looking for a tagline for Meet Menaca. And he proposed a few things and we discussed at length. And then he said, with what you do and the person you are, celebrating you would be the right thing for you. And you circled around it, and today you spoke about exactly that, to bring happiness, to value to people. And so that's why this celebrating you came from. So thank you so much, Ian, for contributing that.
It's been an absolute pleasure and an honor as well.
Thank you, Ian. So following tradition, I am going to announce the next week's speaker. We will be giving an opportunity for all of you on the Zoom to ask the speaker any questions you want. Next week will be our episode 76, will be the Busting the Myth of Mental Illness on the 6th of February with Dr. Kalpana Dean. Kalpana Dean is a consultant forensic psychiatrist working for the National Health Service in an English prison. Following her graduation in medicine from Trivandrum Medical College, she trained in psychiatry in Hampshire and forensic psychiatry in London. Kalpana is pursuing a PhD at Queen Mary's University of London. She has special interest in working with people with personality disorders or autism. Kalpana has research publications in the areas of mental health and crime, as well as the role of culture and religion in improving psychiatric care. Kalpana is passionate about ending the stigma of mental illness and has spoken in forums to bust the myth of mental illness and its treatment. And as many of you know, I am the advocate of mental illness, so I couldn't have got anyone better to come and speak about it. Now, over to Suja Correa to give the vote of thanks.
Mr. Turner, it's an absolute pleasure to have you here on Meet Menaca platform today. It's been absolutely great listening to you, informative, at the same time full of wit. We couldn't actually separate your information from the wit, which made us pay more and more attention to you, which is absolutely great. And thank you so much for taking time amidst your busy schedule to be here on our platform whilst you're covering the range from Atlanta to Adelaide. It is absolutely great to have someone like you here and sharing your wisdom of just 55 years. And at the same time, it was absolutely a breath of fresh air to hear a man openly speak about women empowerment. It's very rare. Seldom men come forward to talk about it, but you did it so brilliantly and made us feel so great. So once again, thank you so much for that. You greatly mentioned, don't just speak about it, do it. And thank you for doing it. Thank you so much. It is an absolute pleasure to be in the presence of you and sharing this platform to learn a lot and understand the values of community. And I accept community is what make a country into a nation. So thank you so much, Mr. Turner, for being here and showing us how to do it. Thank you very much.
Bless you for that. Thank you.
Thank you, Suja. Once again, thank you so much, Ian,
No problem.
for being here. So next time, it is episode 76, Busting the Myth of Mental Illness with Dr. Kalpana Dean. For people who are on the Facebook, thank you so much as ever for supporting us, sharing these messages far and wide. And please do support us to grow our YouTube channel to make sure that we can share these messages even wider. Thank you so much for joining us today. It has come to that time of the day to say goodbye. Until we see you again next week, same time, same place. Stay happy, stay calm, and keep smiling.